Somewhere in the American heartland this morning, a crawler excavator swings its arm over a foundation trench, and the machine doing the work wears a name that would have meant nothing to the men who poured concrete here 50 years ago. It is orange, it is well built, and it was designed and engineered in South Korea. Stop and think about that for a second. 70 years ago, South Korea was one of the poorest countries on Earth. The war had flattened its cities, burned its farmland, and left it dependent on the machines other nations threw away. When Korean crews needed to clear rubble and rebuild, they bought America's war surplus. Bulldozers and cranes and trucks that the United States Army no longer wanted. Korea did not build heavy equipment. Korea survived on the equipment America was finished with. Now walk onto a job site in Texas, or Ohio, or Alberta, and count the orange machines. Count the ones that say Hyundai, or Hyundai, and the ones that say Devilon, or Devilon. Ask the man in the cab why his company chose that machine over the yellow one everybody's grandfather ran. He will not give you a speech about national pride. He will give you a number. He paid less, and the machine digs just as hard. That is the whole story in one sentence. The country America rebuilt from rubble now sells its machines back into America, and it is winning the argument on the one thing that has always mattered most on a job site: cost. Here's why this matters. For most of the last century, if you moved earth for a living, one company set the standard, and everyone else measured themselves against it. Caterpillar, the yellow iron, the name so tied to American strength that people used it the way they used Kleenex or Xerox, as if the brand and the whole category were the same thing. Caterpillar has not fallen. I want to be honest with you about that from the start, because a lot of videos will tell you the giant is dying, and it simply is not true. But something quieter has happened, and in some ways, it is more interesting than a collapse. A nation with no heavy equipment industry of its own built one from steel and salt water and used it to take the one piece of ground Caterpillar could never fully defend: the buyer who runs the numbers cold. To understand how orange machines from Korea ended up on American dirt, you have to go back to the rubble and to a decision that most countries never get right. In the 1960s, South Korea made a bet. Instead of staying a farming country that imported everything heavy, it would build the hard industries first. Steel, ships, then the machines that steel and ships make possible. The government picked winners, poured money into them, and pushed a handful of family companies to grow faster than anyone thought reasonable. One of those companies was Hyundai. The man behind it was Chung Ju-young, or Jung Ju-young, a farmer's son who started with almost nothing and built one of the largest industrial groups in the world. He did not begin with excavators. He began with construction crews and car repair, and then he did something that sounds insane when you say it out loud. He decided to build the largest shipyard on the planet, at a place called Ulsan, or Ulsan, in a country that had never built a serious ocean-going ship, and he pulled it off. That matters for one simple reason. A shipyard is a school for everything heavy. To build a supertanker, you have to cut, bend, and weld enormous plates of steel to tolerances that hold back the ocean. You have to master hydraulics that move parts weighing hundreds of tons. You have to run quality control across thousands of welds, where a single failure sinks the whole thing. Learn to do that, and an excavator arm is a small problem. A very small problem. While Hyundai grew out of shipbuilding, another Korean company came at it from a different direction. Doosan, or Doosan, one of the oldest firms in the country, bought the heavy equipment operation once known as Daewoo, or Daewoo, and turned it into a serious excavator business. For years, those two names, Hyundai and Doosan, were the Korean challenge, sold side by side against the Japanese and the Americans. Then, the map redrew itself. In the last few years, Hyundai bought Doosan's construction equipment arm outright, retired the Doosan name on the machines, and relaunched it as Develon. And on the first day of 2026, the two Korean lines merged into a single company, one corporate parent, two orange brands, built on the same steel that once went into ships. Now here is where it gets interesting, because this is the part the marketing brochures skip and the fleet managers live in. Walk up to a modern Korean excavator and put your hand on it. The steel in the boom and the arm is heavy plate, cut and welded by a company that spent decades keeping the sea out of ship hulls. The hydraulic system, the muscle that actually moves the dirt, runs on pumps and valves refined across tens of thousands of machines. The engine under the hood is very often a familiar American or European brand because the entire industry buys its engines from a short list of the same suppliers. So when a buyer worries that the cheaper machine must be hiding a cheaper heart, the honest answer is that the heart is frequently identical. Which brings us to the math. A fleet manager does not buy a machine, he buys operating hours. And the number that decides everything is cost per hour. You take what you paid, subtract what the machine is worth when you sell it, and divide by the hours you ran it. Then you add fuel, add parts, add the days it sat broken instead of earning. That final figure, dollars per working hour, is the only thing that matters when the accountant is watching. Run that math with a Korean machine, and something uncomfortable happens for the competition. The purchase price comes in meaningfully lower, sometimes by tens of thousands of dollars on a large excavator. The fuel burn is close. The uptime, once the weak spot on every value brand, has climbed high enough that a modern Korean machine will run season after season without drama. Lower money in, similar performance out. On a spreadsheet, the yellow premium starts to look like a feeling you are paying for, rather than a difference you can measure. Now, that premium is not pure vanity, and any honest fleet manager will tell you so. Part of what you pay for with Caterpillar is the density of the dealer network, a parts counter and a service truck never far from the job, and a resale value that holds up years down the road. Those things are real money, and on the biggest and most remote jobs they can swing the whole calculation back the other way. But on the ordinary job, the local grading contract, the subdivision, the county road, the Korean machine closes that gap a little further every year. Once the support is close enough and the resale is close enough, the lower sticker price stops being a gamble and starts being simply the smarter buy. If the real numbers behind these machines are what you come here for, not hype, the actual math, then subscribe, because I run these every single episode. I talked about a fleet manager as if he were a number on a page. He is not. Picture a man who runs 11 machines for a mid-size grading outfit, who has buried 2 kids' college funds in equipment loans, and who lies awake wondering whether the cheaper machine will strand a crew 40 miles from the shop. For 30 years, the safe answer was yellow. The reason the Korean machines are winning is not that they are cheaper. It is that they got good enough that safe and cheap finally sat down at the same table. But every number on a spreadsheet lands on somebody, and this is where the story stops being about machines and starts being about people. Go to a mid-size American town with an equipment dealership out on the highway, the kind of family business that has sold and serviced iron for 2 or 3 generations. For most of its history, that dealer's identity was the brand on the sign, and often that brand was American. Then the market shifted under his feet. His customers started asking for the cheaper machine by name. His salespeople watched deals walk across the street, and at some point the owner faced a hard choice: hold the line on the premium brand and shrink, or take on a Korean line and survive. More and more of them took the Korean line. Today, Devilon alone supports more than 180 dealer locations across the United States and Canada, run out of a headquarters in Georgia, with American workers turning wrenches and stocking parts on Korean machines. Those are real jobs, and they are good ones. But look closely at what they represent. An American dealer network, built over decades to sell American iron, kept alive by selling the machines that compete with it. That is the quiet part. There was no dramatic collapse, no factory town going dark overnight. Instead, there was a slow erosion, one purchase order at a time, in the one market American manufacturers always assumed was theirs: home. The fleet buyer in Ohio, who finally could not justify the premium. The rental company that filled its yard with orange because orange penciled out. The contractor who told his nephew that brand loyalty is a luxury you buy with someone else's money. None of them set out to hurt an American company. They were just running the same cold arithmetic that made Caterpillar great in the first place. And here is what makes it sting. The American giant did nothing wrong, exactly. Caterpillar still builds superb machines, still holds the largest share of the global market by a wide margin, still commands resale values the Korean brands cannot yet match. The premium is real, and often it is worth it. But real and worth it are not the same as unbeatable. A country that started with nothing found the one seam in an empire's armor, the buyer who can no longer afford loyalty, and it has been widening that seam patiently, machine by machine, for years. So let's come back to that orange excavator in the American heartland, the one swinging its arm over a trench this morning, and let's give it the weight it deserves. 70 years ago, the steel flowed the other way. America shipped its surplus iron across the Pacific to help a broken country stand up. American engineers, American aid, American machines, all of it poured into rebuilding a place that had been bombed nearly to nothing. It was one of the most generous things one nation ever did for another, and it worked better than anyone dared hope. Korea stood up. Then Korea learned. Then Korea built. And now the iron flows back. The country America rebuilt from rubble designs and engineers heavy machines and sells them into the American heartland, and American contractors buy them gladly. Because the math is the math. In 1953, standing in the ash of Seoul, not one person alive could have imagined it. The nation buying our cast-off bulldozers would one day sell us the machines that dig our foundations. There is a lesson in that, and it is not a comfortable one. Industrial dominance is not a birthright. It is a lease. You hold it only as long as you keep earning it, and the moment you start charging for the name instead of the work, someone hungrier, someone who remembers being poor, starts running the numbers you stopped running. America did not lose this ground in a war or a scandal. It lost it one honest spreadsheet at a time. The machines still move the same earth they always did. The dirt does not care what flag is on the cab. But the men who built the first tools the world ever trusted might want to ask themselves a harder question than who makes the cheapest excavator. They might ask what else they have decided is theirs forever, simply because it always has been. Because somewhere, right now, someone poor and patient is learning to build it better, and the iron always flows toward whoever is still hungry.